On today's episode, we welcome Brian Ogden, founder and CEO of Impact AI Inc. Brian, welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here.
There you go. So, tell us, why did you start your business and what motivated you to start it?
We um, we saw a gap in climate finance. Specifically, we saw that the old school the pinnings of traditional finance, which postulated innumerable infinite resources, needed to be addressed.
Hmm.
So when we focused on how to do that, we came up with a means to recapture market extrinsic factors. And that means that we can evaluate and determine ecosystem services restoration as a primary for investment.
Hmm. Oh, that's okay. And when did you guys start that business?
Well, so I traveled to Malta from New York and lived there with my wife for about 10 years. And that was during the whole blockchain island craze. So when we focused on that, um, learning about how that worked, what the indications were, and what those exchanges could be, we addressed cryptocurrency in a new fashion. So we're after that deep dive, we traveled Europe and we went to many conferences, business conferences during that period. And for me, crypto has a also has a market extrinsic factor of environmental impact that had not been um, understood or contemplated
Hmm.
by Satoshi when he wrote his white paper. So our focus is to refactor and re-examine how that all works.
Hmm. Nice. And in the business, what's your role as the CEO? Are you like the tech guy implementing it? Are you the decision maker? What's your role in the business right now?
I mean, a little bit about my background. I grew up in Endicott, New York, which is the birthplace of IBM. And I'm a second generation techie. I'm not a first generation 23-year-old trying to figure it out. I've been working in coding and bleeding edge innovation my whole career. Worked with major companies doing presentation work and media production. So I understand ops in tech. I understand how to code and I understand how to appropriately integrate these issues from a life and a career.
Hmm. Hmm. So coming back to maybe what you think with the AI, I think we talked a little bit about the ethic and how it could actually help with the real world impact and environment, basically what you guys try to do. So how do you see this conversation around AI like changing how people think about it or think about all the impact in the environment? Is there
Well, the
a
first part of that question is that OpenAI pretty much has co-opted and branded itself as AI, sort of like
yeah,
Kleenex and and
yeah,
and facial tissue.
yes,
OpenAI doesn't own it, doesn't own AI.
no.
So that's an important distinction that branding is superfluous. It's misunderstood. So there's some consumer education that's required surrounding AI so that people understand, artificial intelligence has been around for
Mhm.
20 years or so. And now we have the compute in order to address that. And most big tech understands that.
Mhm.
Your Google, your Meta,
Yeah.
uh, and Oracle all are jumping into the fray. And recently we've had some smaller Chinese models too come out that really obviate this idea that there needs to be enormous capitalization in order to run large language models.
Mhm.
So that's the first part of this is that people need to understand, hey, you know what? There is a broad spectrum of application and use for AI that and machine learning that's far beyond the consumer understanding of the space. And in that space, what we've done is we've found a LLM model that is tuned specifically to climate data.
Hmm.
It's not trained on the entire internet, but it's specifically and very carefully regimented to only respond and only be indicative of climate science. So we take this model and we tune it to another boundary, which is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, also scientifically established over a period of 20 years or so. So we've got this dense understanding of what actually um, environmental restoration constitutes. How will this impact the humanity? If you make a question to this engine, all of a sudden you get way different answers than a
Mhm.
than a model that's trained on the entire internet and
Yeah.
Shakespeare and all of literature. So we feed climate action projects into this very specifically vertically tuned LLM, and it renders a score as a result. And that score can determine the valuation of that project. And further, we can write smart contracts that unlock for the successful amelioration, successful disposition of those projects. So when those projects move forward, break ground, establish, for instance, a reforestation project can provide measurable results. Smart contracts unlock at those junctures and at those mileposts. So now what we've got is a let's call it a trustless, decentralized means to monitor environmental restoration and then reward it by tokenizing that outcome and memorializing it on the chain. So then we just let the market decide what that is. I don't have that entire um, propagation of the model figured out. We haven't done that yet. But like any startup, people say having a startup is like jumping out of a building and building a plane on the way down, and that's what we're doing. There's a lot of moving parts, but we have an amazing team of science and crypto and landscape architecture. So our my other co-founders are all highly trained and skilled, just as I am, and we all contribute to guide the ship.
Is that LLM that you guys using a public or a private one? Is that you guys
It's a
that built
public
it?
LLM. You can
Oh, it's a public.
scrutinize every bit of the
Okay.
of its training. It's just
Oh,
a specific use
yeah.
of an existing model. So we're not
Hmm.
writing this LLM, and this LLM isn't going to go away or
No.
get changed in a way that is unexpected. Well, we're not going to get the rug pulled out from under us, and
No.
our users don't have to um, be afraid of the outcome. In the case of OpenAI, they're changing their model, and that they have all kinds of issues given their governance and their
Yeah.
leadership. It's a rocky boat. This thing's rock solid. A bunch of scientists that got together very carefully, very painstakingly built this model. And the climate data, how climate science works, that's sort of evergreen. Once we establish those boundaries,
Mm,
it's very reliable,
mm.
and you can determine your projects based on the opinion of this climate science model.
Hmm. And is it like properly developed or does it give like good answers? Like sometimes you'll speak with people talking about ChatGPT, how he hallucinate answers, how he'll just like create stuff. Is that public LLM does the same, or whenever he gives answers, it's usually well structured. It's like a research background. It's an only environment.
Exactly. So the point of that is that the OpenAI has been tuned by human response to be what's
Mm.
known as sycophantic. It wants to please you.
Yeah,
It wants to make you happy in its answer, and the
yeah,
result for that is often a hallucination in its efforts to make the user's question fulfilled.
yeah.
We're not doing that. If this is science, we're not trying. There's no sycophantic product
Mm.
market fit in this model.
Nice.
But that's not how the thing was trained, and it can't be circumnavigated or it can't be, let's say, intruded on with those kinds of market problems that have been introduced into OpenAI.
Hmm. And did we see any like concrete example of a measurable impact that this AI kind of did with environment or any project that it worked with?
Well, it's an open source project. You can go. You can when we release. So we're planning this January on coming to market with
Okay.
our solution.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can certainly do a search on climate LLMs. We've done our own research. That's our IP to determine how we use this model.
Mhm.
um, it's an open source model, but
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have to be forthcoming right now about all of the nuts and bolts until we launch. So when we launch, that information will be absolutely publicly available, open to all kinds of scrutiny. You can take a look at our white papers and painstakingly go through just as we did.
Hmm. And how do you see it having an impact on environment on your part? How like what's the plan on that side with the AI?
So when I came up with this idea, I was in the EU and I was working on a Horizon 2020 grant. And that thing took so much time and energy to administrate. It wore me out. And we didn't even get to do the project in the fashion that I had hoped.
Hmm.
In order to get the funding, there was enormous amounts of paperwork. You had to
Yeah.
jump through hoops. There was regulation. I had to get an engineer to participate in the writing of the grant, and we even had to submit it twice.
Hmm.
I purpose to never do that again. Never do that again. It's not my forte. But the other
Yeah.
thing is, I wanted to save other people pain. So that's maybe the first pain in the marketplace that I came out of my own passion for climate action projects. This was an award-winning project. We of course we won the grant, but the point I'm saying is, in order to win the grant, the it just took a long time. So
Hmm.
I thought, well, what if we automate that process? What if we look at projects with AI and immediately render a score, and then from that score, memorialize the review of that project? And then we let the market determine, well, okay, so what's the value of this?
Hmm.
And I'm just putting it out there. What we want to do is change how climate finance works. And
Hmm.
right now, it works mostly by large groups of bureaucratic committees and reviews of those projects, and they may or may not get through. And there may be some politicalization of projects. Who knows who spoke to whom? Ooh, what's
Hmm.
hot? So instead of doing that, we're bringing it down to the bare bones of, well, is this scientific? Will this impact the environment? And if the answer is yes, and the valuation is true, then we're going to issue a token to address and say, hey, this project came through our oracle. We're calling it an environmental oracle, an
Hmm.
eco oracle. It came through our oracle. It was rendered this score. Okay, you guys can decide what this is worth.
Hmm. And do you have an example of that kind of project that could be done with the AI?
Well, I mean, any project can potentially be submitted to the Oracle.
Yeah.
When we come to market, we'll have more determinants about the format of
Hmm.
that, but it's not going to be capital intensive to submit your project. The whole point of our Oracle is to enable and democratize climate action so that it's not only in the hands of institutions.
Hmm. Okay, I understand. So, and for that kind of business, what's been working well for you guys as the business? I think the launch is coming on January. Is the development went well? Like what was going well for the business on your part?
Well, I appreciate that question. We have let's call it a proof of concept, or it maybe even an MVP. Where we, I wrote this thing so that it could run on an Orin Jetson Nano. It's a quantized model. We're we It doesn't require a real high compute, and I'm not a strong advocate of large compute requirements to run AI. It
Mhm.
doesn't need fields of fossil fuel burning energy in order to run this thing. The other piece of this is that really what we're looking for, if you want to know what our resource requirements are, is we're looking for places that are trustworthy that want to host these nodes. So
Mhm.
we've got one that works and is up and running and sits on my desk every day. It's been running for months, and that was an important thing. Not necessarily that I could only get it make one, but that it would be stable. It's on a Linux box. Orange Jets and Nanos are rock solid day after day after day.
Hmm.
So we also have landscape architecture in the mix, and science. So my co-founder Paul Kissinger and also Mo Sagad, which has worked extensively with the UN. Paul has been an international landscape architect. So it's not just my technical prowess or my understanding of sustainability. These are, again, seasoned senior professionals that are helping to steer the ship.
Hmm. And could that have been a challenge between all of you, all that knowledge coming in to build that project, or what would be the challenges for that kind of
Now
project?
that's an interesting question, but frankly, the science isn't disputed. I
Yeah.
mean, amongst folks who are dedicated to sustainability, there's not a lot of disagreement. For instance, 99% of climate scientists believe in anthropogenic climate change. It's only when it moves into people who really don't understand what science means and
Mhm.
into the politicians' mouths where there's any kind of dispute or disagreement or conjecture. Amongst the folks that are trained and diligent reviewed, have gone through academic programs, which this is what we have to produce scientists. We have carefully scrutinized, mentored individuals practicing science. That's a little different than what we have in politics.
Hmm.
So that grooming and that careful academic rigor is what guides us.
Hmm. So was it harder to build the tech team or the tech side of the platform and the business, or to align the people and get all those mindset together to actually build that project?
Well, so LLMs are now perfunctory. You
Hmm.
tuning them, structuring them, programming them, making those basic things. If you're a coder,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting here, you know, 30 years into my career, and I look at
Yeah.
the thing and I go, "Oh, all right, we'll just do that."
Yeah.
That's not necessarily how somebody who doesn't understand AI is. But
Yeah.
in the world of AI, if you have any kind of engineering background and you've worked in code, you spend a few years in the space. You know how to build one of these things, and it's
Yeah.
and it's it's pretty straightforward. I mean, this is why these amazing Chinese models are coming out. Is
Mhm.
that there are ways to do this that that are pretty cost effective.
Hmm. And when you talk about those Chinese, is it DeepSeek or is there any
Well,
other
there's
platform?
a couple new. I'm not going to go into. There are concerns
Yeah. Yeah.
about these models.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's concerns about American
Yeah.
AI policy and structures and big business too. So I'm not. I don't want to. I'm not trying to name names as much as I'm trying to respond to your question and address process.
I understand. I understand. So looking for the next year for your business, what's the big goal? I think you just said you're launching in January. So is the goal is
Mhm.
getting a number of clients? What's the goal for 2026?
So both things. We're doing some outbound marketing. We found a partner to help with outbound marketing.
Nice.
We have a platform using traditional fiat and existing online AI, and that's called greenvc.puregreenai.com. And that platform is like our way of engaging legacy understandings of the application of AI for climate finance. So your run of the mill VC can take a look and go, hey, AI evaluated this guy's deck. Oh, look at that. So it's a lot easier for them to understand than when I get into, well, here, really the best way to do that is this, which is kind of technical. Not all VCs are technical. I love, by the way, I would in a heartbeat engage with VCs that are engineers also. They're my faves. I love those guys because the explanatory um and issues engaging about the tech are a lot easier in those cases. So we're not just looking at a product market fit or a lean startup mentality. We're looking at really deep tech understanding.
And what do you guys do as outbound marketing? Do you do like cold email, then Facebook leads? How do you get reach those people to actually place yourself to talk with them?
Well, that's a good idea, and I'm not going to say.
Okay, no
I mean,
worries.
it's a good question about how we're going to market. There's some things I'll talk about our business, and I'd say that we're keeping with regulations. One
Perfect.
really exciting about change in AI policy in the United States is that innovative developments in cryptocurrencies are not going to have the previous scrutiny that the SEC had employed. So there's some fabulous changes that are happening in January that really open the gates to all kinds of new, wonderfully innovative, uh, uh, transforming applications of both AI and crypto.
Hmm. Nice. So before we close, is there any place that people can come and reach your business or talk with you if they're interested in reaching out?
Yeah, I had mentioned if you're a VC, that platform is a nice way to kind of get acquainted with us. Any kind
Mhm.
of VC is. I'm a little deprecating because I had some rough experiences with VCs, but
Yeah.
mostly most VCs really want to engage and understand this and move forward, and they're good hearted. So
Yeah.
greenvc.puregreenai.com, greenvc.puregreenai.com. Now, our go to market strategy is also interesting. As we come to market, we want to leverage network effects. So if you just go to that main URL, puregreenai.com, that is an affiliate program to help promote green projects.
Hmm.
So in this cloud, I told you the core, what I think is going to be most effective and make the biggest splash in this space. But people understand affiliate marketing, and they understand, oh, an AI could evaluate a pitch deck. Great. Come in the door. Let's, that's a great way to get introduced to what we're up to. We want you here. We want you to engage. So anybody, that's the whole thing about democratizing climate action, is that anybody can go to puregreenai.com, sign up, and start to get their feet wet.
Hmm. Great, Brian. So I'll send that to people and thanks for the conversation.
Thank you very much today, Max. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
thank you.